What's going on, guys? I'm back with two awesome buggies. I've got the Kyosho RB6, current two-wheel drive world champion, and the TLR 22 2.0. That's the Roar national champion. I'm going to compare the two buggies. I've got them both. I've been running them for a while, and both are pretty awesome cars. They're competition racing cars. They're not cars you would bash. But there are a lot of differences between them, some better on one car than the other, and some worse. But essentially this is a comparison of like the bench performance, if you will. Kind of like the whole package of what you would get out of the box, manual, diff, shocks, stuff like that. And it's basically kind of some of the superficial differences between them. There's a large price gap, and yeah, some things are better than others. The first thing I have is the manuals, believe it or not. Let's look at the Kyosho first. So here we have a page here. It's just a random page. You notice when you look at any of the parts, you have these little indicators, 35, 101, 100. You have to go to the back of the manual where there's a reference guide to find out what the actual part number is for that part, which is kind of silly and a waste of time. Random page on the TLR kit, you get all the part numbers labeled to all the parts right on that page. That saves time. Building the kits, okay? You build a Kyosho, and you have to open more bags than you need at that particular step. Mainly, if I remember correctly, to get the screws that you need. And you have parts trees for the plastic parts. A lot of the parts, most of the parts on the parts trees, you don't even need. That's stupid! The TLR, you open up bag A or bag B or 1 or 2 or however it goes, you get all the parts that you need right in that bag, all the screws, everything. That's dynamite. I want to say also that in building the kits, the Kyosho kit went together flawlessly. I had no missing parts, there was no binding, it was dynamite. The TLR kit, I was missing 4 screws. You can't tell because I have a chassis protector, but there's 4 screws that hold in the tranny back here, 4 flatheads. They're kind of big, like I want to say it's a 3x12 and a 3x20. They were in my package. They were not in the box. And both cars are mid-motor, which is kind of obvious. But anyways, those screws were missing, believe it or not. Luckily I had some screws on hand, and also in building this kit, the left, I don't know, C-hub, knuckle, whatever you want to call it, it vined a little bit. It bound. So I actually had to take, there's a washer, a plastic washer that you put on the top, there's one you put on the bottom. I had to sand them down a little bit to get it to move freely. And in addition, the steering rack bound a little bit, and I had to sand that down also per Frank Root's advice if you look at the RC Tech forums. So I did that, and now it's smooth. But still, it's just something to think about. Ball diffs. The Kyosho I've been running for a while. It's probably been since March or May. It's been quite a few months. Original diff, original drive shafts, original out drives. Everything is stock and original from the box, and the diff is still butter smooth. I don't have a motor in here right now, but the diff has been awesome. And I've only been running it in 17.5. Both cars have only been run in 17.5, but this ball diff is awesome. Both cars include, if I'm not mistaken, I believe so, tungsten balls in the diffs. And the Kyosho, no, the Losi, it has been run quite a bit. Not as much as the Kyosho, but it is also very smooth. no grindiness or anything. So both ball diffs went together smooth in the build and have stayed smooth throughout the performance and lifetime. It's probably been maybe, I think it's only been 3 weeks since I got this 2.0. But the Kyosho, I can tell you, has, I want to say 6 months, and it's still super smooth. Shocks. So, Kyosho is known for their shocks. The freaking shocks on the Kyosho are dynamite. They went together easily. The build was pretty easy. On the 2.0, the shocks are also dynamite. No problems, no issues. They go together really easy. You have bleeder screw caps, which I'm very used to. You have the screw up here to bleed them, and it's really nice. I haven't had any problems. But I haven't had any problems with the Kyoshos either, and they load from the bottom. It's kind of a different system. I like it because you can drain the bubbles easily. There really aren't any bubbles, to be honest. You just kind of fill up the shock body and put in the retainer, and there you go. So I give it to Kyosho because when you have to rebuild your shocks or fill the oil or change the oil or whatever, it doesn't take as much time as the TLR because you kind of have to wait for all the bubbles to bleed out. Also, springs. Like normal, you get one set of springs for the front and rear, but if you want to buy optional springs, they cost a shitload of money for the Kyosho. Springs are not cheap on the Kyosho. Losi, on the other hand, you can get the whole set of front springs for a pretty good price, relatively. Same with the rear. You get the whole set of low frequency springs for a good price. Kyosho, one set, and it's a boatload of money. Shock tools. So this is something that kind of was like a pet peeve to me. Let me grab them really quick. You get a set of shock tools in each vehicle. The Kyosho, for their big bores, they give you this tiny little plastic piece. That's what you get. That's for the bottom retainer to tighten it to the shock body. And on the TLR kit, you get two pieces. You get this for the bottom, and you get this for the top cap. Pretty cool. This on the Kyosho, on the other hand, it doesn't work all that well. It strips out, it doesn't last, and eventually it's useless. These parts on the TLR kit, though, I haven't had any problems. They've been dynamite. On the Kyosho, I've had to buy optional parts, some tools. So these are made by GMK. You have your top, you have your shock body, and you have your bottom piece. I know Avid makes a tool as well for just the bottom, and it doubles as a turnbuckle wrench. But that doesn't matter. The point is that you have to spend more money on the Kyosho to build your shocks correctly without having to scratch the shocks from using, like, I don't know, just a wrench or something like that. TLR, you get the tools you need out of the box. Weight. So once you get the cars built, weight, mid-motor. So I have got saddle packs in this dude, no shorty, but with this all ready to go, body clips, motor, everything, it weighed about 1615. So that's not too bad. Roar limit, I believe, is 1499 grams. So I'm way over. This weighed 1615 grams. If you put a shorty pack in this, that would drop it about 70 grams. On the other hand, the Kyosho, the Losi, on the Losi, I've got a shorty in here, and that weighs about 1588. And I should probably mention that I have a few optional parts in each of these cars, mainly to reduce weight. So I have the titanium screw kits in both cars, and that helped drop some weight, but the bottom line in this weight talk is that the Losi is a tank. It is heavy, and it drives heavy. Shock mounts. Shock mounts. Okay. Mainly just on the front. The rear is not an issue, but on the Kyosho, if you notice, your shocks, if you want to adjust or take them off, you get to them from the back side. And you have a standard screw on here. On the TLR kit, you can access your shocks from the front. You have a M3 nut here, no problem. Comes off from the front. It's much more convenient than having to take your driver on the back side and loosen them up like you have to do on the Kyosho. And in addition, on the low C, you have these fancy mounts where you can actually, if you want to move your position, take off the nut on the back, and there you go. You can just take it off, pull the whole thing out, put it in another hole, and you're set. That's kind of something that, if you get the Lunsford quick tune upper shock mounts, they make them in that style for various cars, but it's something that's been out for a long time, but not many companies put it into their cars. But it's nice. It's nice that it's in the low C stock. Also on the back, it's the same on the low C and the Kyosho. You have to actually take off the wing if you want to get to the rear shocks, but it's the same system on the rear of the low C. You can just remove your nut if you want to take out your shock and put it in a different shock position on the shock tower, and it makes it quick and easy. Okay, rear camber link. This really pissed me off. On the mid-motor setup, rear motor, no problem, either car. On the mid-motor setup for Kyosho, I went to go adjust the washers underneath the rear ball stud, right? Well, the way that the shock tower is designed, it is right over the ball stud. You cannot really adjust that. You can't get the ball stud out. I had to take off the rear shock tower by taking off the 2 screws that hold in the tranny right back here, and then 2 screws on the bottom, and kind of tilting the shock tower back. You can't get to those ball studs. It's freaking ridiculous. It's a design flaw, I guess. Maybe I don't have that special tool to get to it. I'm not really sure, but I could tell you that it was super annoying when I was wrenching on my car and I wanted to make an adjustment to put some washers underneath that ball stud, and I couldn't get to it. It pissed me off. On the TLR, no problem. You freaking get right in there. Piece of cake. There have been no limitations really on the TLR when I wanted to adjust anything. On the Kyosho, there haven't been any limitations when I wanted to adjust something other than those rear ball studs in the mid-motor configuration. Okay, I already mentioned that both cars have the titanium screws. The TLR car has the TLR titanium screws. Kyosho has the Kyosho titanium screws. And I want to point it out because it's kind of nice. The Kyosho kit, when you get the Kyosho screws, I'm getting mixed up. When you get the Kyosho screw kit for the RB6, it comes with a little piece of paper that tells you where to put your screws, in which locations, and it even specifies for rear or mid-motor configuration where to put your tie screws. On the TLR car, you get a bag of titanium screws, and that's it. There's no documentation, there's no hints, there's no tips, there's no tricks. It's just a bag of screws, and it was kind of, in comparison to the Kyosho, it was kind of stupid. It was like, okay, you got a bag of screws. Just a slight superficial difference. Wire routing. Both cars are in mid-motor. Check it out. Space is limited. TLR, check it out. Space is limited. Both cars have little space. Both cars are going to be difficult to wire your electronics. Although I do like that the TLR has this whole battery mount up top. You can put your ESC. I also chose to put my ESC capacitors and my switch. I chose to go with the shorty servo on the Kyosho, and it was able to fit things up front, but then you have all this wire, and that wire is weight. That's just the way it is. I think that's just the way cars are going. As they get smaller, narrower, and lighter, there's less room. It was kind of a pain in the butt, and both cars took a lot of time to wire them up. So in total, both cars, I will say, have their own quirks. Both cars are dynamite on the bench. Both cars are dynamite on the track. And neither car is better. I don't want to try to be bashing one car and saying the other is superior. That's not my objective here. Hopefully, if you don't have either car, or if you checked one out, or if you're interested in one, it's kind of good to see what some of the differences are. There is one other thing that I should point out, and it is something that I hate. Okay, so it's the front tire nut. Doesn't seem like a big deal. Kyosho, you actually have a nut, right? You take it off, screw it on, no big deal. On the Losi, you have this funky nut screw, and let me just do this for you really quick. Okay, because this thing, I hate it. I hate it, TLR. Why? J Concepts is coming out with a system that actually has a nut, but you have a screw that is a nut that goes on the front, and the hex material width is so minor. Like, it's so effing tiny that when you put your wheel on there, it freaking, it pisses me off. You go on the Kyosho, and you have a nut which is exactly the same as the rear. That is nice. Okay? It freaking pops right on there, and you have no issues. I have had the screw, this little freaking stupid ass screw on the Losi, come off on me while I was racing. That's retarded. It shouldn't come off. If anything, TLR, they should have made this serrated. Why couldn't you serrate that? It wouldn't have come off then. So, there you have it. Stupid ass front axle. I will say that if you use a TLR front wheel, that's your best bet for optimal performance. I have used the AKA Hexlite front wheel, and it did not seem to go on very easily. It was kind of a pain in the butt, whereas the TLR wheel just went on no problem. See how easily this Kyosho front wheel went on the axle? And not even that, but when the wheel fits into the hex on the axle, you can feel it. You know it's in there, and it feels secure. And you don't have to worry about trying to freaking align it up. Make sure you don't screw on that little screw thing with the wheel not aligned up, because you don't want to strip out the wheel. I love this 2.0, but it has some things that piss me off. Tell me, guys, what cars do you like? What car do you drive? If you had to pick, which of these two would you go with? Both are pretty awesome, but what do you like? Let me know in the comments. Thanks, guys. I'll see you later.